Hello again, everybody. I'm Mike. Matt's here with you. Episode number 37 here on the Inside Bowling Show. We're happy you're with us today. Today, we're kind of teasing the audience, I guess I would say, because we're going to have two great coaches on today, and many people can't go out and bowl and take what they learned today and apply it to the lane. So sorry about that, everybody, but you can go ahead and listen to this one. You can visualize yourself going out and working on these things. You can make some notes, grab a notepad today. You might want to, and then you can then archive this broadcast. It'll be on podcast form. Go to the bowling center instead of listening to music in your earphones. You can do this. You can listen to this show back. So the good news is if you are listening to the show today, you're going to need to type in your email address in the comments so we can send you an invoice for today's coaching lesson. And you'll just make all the checks out to Mike Flanagan, not Matt Farber, not Inside Bowling, just to me.
Yeah, and not the coaches either.
No, not at all. No, I'm not going to share any of it at all, but just right here. And, this is going to be our largest generating revenue show that we've had so far. So that's kind of the plan for today. I needed some money. I went to Texas Roadhouse last night, emptied out my bank account. First time eating out, Matt, since February. And here in Utah, you're allowed to do so. Kind of a unique experience. No menus on the table. Obviously, no peanuts all over the place. And anytime I wanted like some sort of condiments or steak sauce or ketchup or anything, it had to come out in a souffle cup. But you know what? I mean, the place was clean, man. I mean, it was like wiped down everywhere. It's kind of a nice dining experience. I had no kids behind me kicking my
it's always a plus. Always a plus.
Yeah, I mean, I love children in that, and look, I don't have kids or anything like that, but boy, I'll tell you what, this was a great experience at Texas Roadhouse. A little bit long to get the salads out last night, though, and that's okay.
That's okay. Did you feel safe throughout your dining experience, Mike?
Yeah, it felt great. I mean, I felt really good at the dining experience. Yeah.
Were you wearing a mask?
No. It's very difficult to eat dinner with a mask on.
Well, I was saying, is it like when you go in, do you have to wear masks throughout your time there,
Nope.
except for when you're eating and dining?
No, but I did go to Costco afterwards, and there you have to have a mask.
Got it. Okay.
Not at a dining establishment, just at Costco. So no free samples at Costco either. How much money do you think they're saving? Not only is everybody flocking to Costco and Sam's, but there's no free samples. I mean.
Well, maybe they're losing money because the free samples get people to buy stuff.
Oh, see, look at you. See, that's why I have you on the show.
That's right, baby.
They wouldn't do the free samples unless they're getting, yeah, that makes total sense. And I'm the marketing guy, right? I'm fired.
Or
I'm
are you? Or are you?
I don't think I am. I'm not. Hey, by the way, go buy this shirt. Not Bowling Sucks, right? Save 15% with coupon code IB Show. Hope everybody's doing good today. We see some comments coming in. Want to thank everybody for watching the show. We've got our typical crew in here already. We got Jeremy and Vic and Rick in there, and Rick Ramsey gave us a rave review I saw this morning on Facebook. He's like, I'm loving these bowling shows every day. So pretty cool. All right, let's head over to our daily poll question brought to you by Bowler X. Let's take a look at yesterday's poll question, which is, which of the following is the best bowling video game? We had Rambo Ray on yesterday for a very interesting conversation. And wow, here we go. Wii Bowling wins at 40.8%. Ray's not going to be happy about that one. PBA Pro Bowling, the console game, currently out right now on Xbox and PlayStation 4, 30.6%. So a lot of people playing the game. That's awesome. It is a cool game. Brunswick Pro Circuit Bowling coming in third at 24.5%. And man, my favorite game out of this list is the Silver Strike bowling game that you could find in bars and restaurants and arcades with the roller ball, and had Randy Peterson doing the announcing. Comes in at only 4.1%, a hidden game there, maybe because you had to go somewhere to play the game instead of playing it at home is why it failed so miserably in this poll, Matt.
I'm on a heater, Mike. All I know is I just schooled you with that sampling example, and usually you're the one that's kind of giving suggestions here as to what the choices should be like. And at the last second, I was like, hey, Mike, what about Wii Bowling in as the last option? I think it's a good one. And we're like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's throw it in. I'm not sure how it'll do. And Ray's one thing with bowling games was he wanted realistic pin action. And I got to say, I sent quite a few messengers in Wii Bowling, so I'm happy with the way that the poll turned out.
You look like a Wii bowler just in real life, Matt.
The thing is that I develop all these goofy styles, right? That just like should not work, but I somehow make them work. And you can throw backup balls, and there are cheats and stuff to like knocking down the 100 pins. I think it's a blast. I think it's a lot of fun. My favorite part though is when you throw the ball backwards and then all the people jump and they spin around and they go wee. That's my favorite part.
Yeah, I figured that'd probably be your favorite part, Matt.
I don't know what you're trying to say by saying that.
You're such a masculine fellow on this program, let me tell you. All right, so what do you have for today's poll question? Is the theme of the show is coaching?
No, we don't have a poll question for today anymore, Mike.
Oh, no? Okay,
no.
You're just going to just bail on me like that?
Yeah, it's a masculine thing to do. Today's poll question brought to you by Bowler X is how many pins do you think your average would increase after a lesson with Mark Baker or Mike Jasnau? First option, 1 to 10. Second option, 11 to 20. Third option, more than 20. Or the fourth option, which really shouldn't even be on there, but we put it on there just because, is your average wouldn't change. And if you select that fourth option, you're going to be banned from the Inside Bowling Show because that's just not true.
Yep. No, it's not true. Cool. All right. I would probably, I'd probably pick one of the middle ones personally, but I've had a lesson with Jasnau, never with Bakes. I don't know if I can handle a lesson with Bakes, to be quite honest with you. Because I think he'd spit me out and throw me out the meat grinder. No, I'm just kidding. What's funny thing about Baker, and we're going to get into this today, is he's worked with people from all different average categories, beginner bowlers to the greatest bowlers in the world. And Mike's done that too. I'm just looking forward to talking to these guys about their coaching business model and what they do, because they are different. I mean, every coach is different. But the two that we have on today are two of the greatest I've ever seen in the sport. I've been around it for a while. So
we got Jeremy. Jeremy's coming in here, Mike. Sorry to interrupt. Not a Twitter fan, but 1120 if that counts. No, Jeremy, it doesn't count. You got to ship yourself over onto that Twitter platform, create this profile so you can participate in this Twitter poll that we have every single day. It does not count, Jeremy.
Okay. All right.
Just felt like I should roast our good friend Jeremy Witt, who's here every single day.
Every day. Yeah, he supports the show. Okay, so I guess it's time to bring in our guest today, because I'm looking forward to talking to him. We really didn't do any show prep on this one, but today we're going to talk a little bit about their bowling careers. A lot of people don't realize these guys did bowl on tour. Bakes had more success than Jazz, and Jazz now doesn't really like to talk about his tour days because he didn't have the best arm swing ever in the world. It wasn't bad. He had a good game, but he doesn't really like to talk about it because, he likes to be a coach, and that's what he is now. It's not go on the past. He tried that for a while, but the man had game for sure. And Bakes definitely had game. And whenever he was on TV, with his hair and everything, the blonde hair, he was,
oh yeah,
he was like He-Man on the tour, but anyway, just cool that these guys used to bowl, so we do want to talk about that a little bit. We're also going to see how they're doing. We're going to talk a little bit about the business side of their coaching and then their philosophies a little bit. So with no further ado, Matt, if you could bring up our two guests today, Mark Baker and Mike Jasnau, joining us here on the show today. Bakes, Jazz, how you guys doing?
Hey guys, how's everything?
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. So let's see. Let's start with Bakes. Bakes, tell us about your setup there. What's behind you? What do we have up on the wall?
Those are pictures of my son, Gage, and he's, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and then it goes around the front room into the hallway and until he's about, he's 11 now. So that's kind of what I have on the wall back here.
Yeah, you're in an interesting spot here at 11 years old. The shit's about to hit the fan now for you with Gage.
He's actually pretty easy. He's a good kid. He doesn't have a lot of my personality traits yet. So he's much calmer than me. So he's much easier.
Yeah, I know. I know you've incorporated Gage a little bit, brought him out to the bowling events and stuff. Is Gage bowling at all? Is he taking up bowling?
Yeah, Gage, right before all this went down, about 6 months ago, he switched to two-handed. and he loves it. So he plays a lot of basketball. He likes to play golf. He's an animal expert on any kind of animal in the world, but bowling is in there too. And he became a two-hander, and he really likes, you can't put an emphasis enough about how much you can make it hook. Hooking it is cool. It always has been.
As Mike likes to say, chicks dig the big wheel.
That's right. So do 11-year-old little boys.
And how do you feel about him bowling two-handed? Are you happy that he's bowling two-handed?
Oh, it's much more efficient. Two-handed is, if all things are equal, the two-handed guy will win every time.
Okay.
And that's been proven by the boy from Australia.
All right. Wow.
Bakes, have you tried two-handed, Bakes?
Have I tried two-handed? No, I had back surgery in 91. I just soon not have another one. I can do a one-step. I've done it with Gage. I've taken a one-step two-hander, and I throw 11-pound ball. I can throw it pretty good. It's easy to get your hand in the right place. I'll give you that.
That's true.
I tried it for a little bit. I had to use a 12-pounder. It was the only way I could do it, and I still sucked. So it's not easy at all. Bakes, you're in California still, right?
Correct.
How are things in California for you during the pandemic?
I live in Orange County, which is about 30 to 40 miles south of Los Angeles. So it's like living in a different world compared to LA. LA, they're still shut down pretty good. Orange County, we're starting to open up. We've gone out to dinner once. We go to the beach once a week. It's still completely different than normal, but it's getting closer. So I guess that's all I can say about it. It's hard not working. Yeah,
I bet. Okay, let's transition over to Mike a little bit. Mike, you're in Utah. I'm in Utah. You're on the other side of the mountain.
Right.
The drone won't fly over to your house, though. I've tried it. I tried to do a little care package delivery. It just didn't work.
Yeah. If we had a tunnel, we'd live really close.
We really would. And you've got it. You've got the coaching set up there behind you. Who do you have on the wall behind you? And that looks really familiar to me.
Yeah, this is actually the background I had at the National Bowling Stadium on Lane 81. In order, going from the left of the screen in a setup position, that's Ryan O'Page, Ryan Schaefer, Jeff Carter, obviously the great Pete Weber, the other great Jason Belmonte, another great. I mean, look at all those greats up there. It's crazy. Norm Duke and Timmy Mack.
Yeah, Timmy Mack up front. Cool. So how are things in Utah for you? Obviously, I know what it's kind of like here, but what's it like for you on the other side of the mountain?
Because where I live, and you haven't been to my house, but you kind of know where I live. It's kind of, people are spread out, so and I walk, I hike quite a bit up in the mountains, and lately there's been way more people than I've ever seen on the same trails. And I remember a couple of weeks ago, somebody walked by me and I was like, "Oh, you're social distancing, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's where I live here. When are you going back home?" Because there's way more people than I've ever seen. Usually on a hike, I don't see anybody, and now I see 6 to 10 people, which isn't a lot, especially compared to like LA or something. But it's really quite different and kind of bizarre. I feel like I live kind of in a sheltered area compared to a lot of the rest of the world, though. Obviously, we have some of the cases of COVID here, not drastic, but it's still pretty scary. It's different going to the grocery store and all that kind of stuff. But luckily, I live in a beautiful area, so I'm able to get out quite often.
You do live in a beautiful area. You love to ski. You get how many inches of snow? How many inches of snow you get over there?
This year we had about 175. So, we've had up to like 230, 240 in a season. And that's awesome. I love it.
It's more than I get on this side of the mountain.
It's a lot more, yeah.
Mike, you've been this is very different for you. You're normally on the road how many days a year?
I'm usually away from home over 7 months a year. So this is actually, I've lived here in this house for 14 years. This is the first time I've ever seen spring here, so that's kind of cool. But this is also the longest period of time I've ever been home in 14 years. So it's nice, but it sucks because I'd rather be out working. Especially when I work the national tournament, it's a grind. You kind of psych yourself up for it. So I was all raring to go, and then it got kind of postponed, and yeah, everything's kind of on hold, and it just sucks not working.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Hey guys, I want to transition here to a little bit about your bowling. You know, I think a lot of people forget to talk about this. You guys were both on a tour. You guys both competitively. It's where you cut your teeth, and obviously now you've graduated into coaching. And just tell me, Bakes, a little bit about your time on tour, what you remember from it, what you like the most, and then maybe tell us a little bit about how that's helped you with your coaching career.
I bowled on tour for 9 years. I had some success. I did okay. You know, I won 4 times, which, you know, before you started, 4 would have been a good number. When you get done, you're always disappointed you didn't win more. I had a good run. I was pretty consistent. I was always in the top. I was always in the top 20, 25 money winners, 3 years ago in the top 10. So tour was good. Then I had back surgery, and I think that was the U.S. Open in Atlantic City.
Yep.
Pete ran the tables. But tour was fine. Good hair. I wish I was that thin. That's for sure. But that was a good tournament. We had a packed house. We had all the NC2A basketball coaches in I've got a poster of that in my bedroom with a few memorabilia I have of myself bowling, and Gene Keady and a couple other, John Thompson. They're all in the background picture. It's kind of cool, all these NC2A coaches from basketball. But that was a good week. It was a better week for Pete. I remember that. He ran us over.
Hey, Bates, that was a quick comment on that week.
Sure.
That was Atlantic City, right?
Yep.
Okay. Do you know I actually led that tournament?
Do you know who what?
You know, I actually led that tournament.
For how many rounds? One game?
I shot 300 the first game.
That for U.S. Open, I remember they weren't very hard. But
correct. And I had the best round of my career that week. I shot. It was a pretty good story. I had the first. It was the second year we bowled for all the money, where it was 100,000 on top. So that was a whole different tournament where last check was 4,000, and you just wanted to get a check, or last final spot was 4G. So it was a big money tournament. And I was kicked the cash with 8 games to go. And I remember I crossed Gary Dickinson, probably the best guy to bowl with. And I just got in my own little world, and I started bowling pretty good. And bowling the 8th game of that round. And Harry Golden came down and is like, hey, you have a chance to break the all-time 8-game record. Which I didn't know what it was. It was Billy Hardwick was 560 over for 8. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? And Gary Dickinson to this day said, Goose, just leave him alone. He doesn't know what he's doing. Leave him alone. And I had spare 3-bagger last game. I didn't know what I was doing. So Goose is looking at my recap, and he goes, no, you really have a chance for the record. All you need is 270 last game. And I go, well, how many pins have I knocked down so far? And Dickinson's line was, well, you got the hard 490 out of the way. So for the first 7 games, I was 490 over. And then I just went spare 3-bagger. Goose told me that. Next shot, solid 8. 204 clean the last game. So I shot 490 something over that round. But then I made the show, and like I said, Pete ran us all over. Your week ended up way better than mine. I did not.
Yeah, that was a good week. Those checks. I like that U.S. Open format when Seagram sponsored. I finished like 9th in Tacoma, finished 4th in Atlantic City, and I finished 7th the next year in Oklahoma. So when you made the prize fund big enough, I could actually concentrate for all the games.
Matt, you know what I find interesting here is Bakes says that he had an okay career and he won 4 times. And we just did our Fantasy Masters League draft the other night, and we talked about how only 360 people have ever won on the national tour. And I haven't done the stats ahead of time into the show, but that the list of people that have won once is the longest list that there is. 2, obviously, is the shortest list. To win 4 more titles, that list has got to be pretty rare. I mean, you're in rare company there, Bakes. I wouldn't discount your tour career at all.
Well, I probably need to hang out with guys that don't have so many titles. Probably the 3 people I talk to the most are Barnes, Husted, and Barry Asher. So I'm always the 4th wheel in my group, so I always feel like, I'm barely on the team.
Yeah, no, I get it. But, I mean, you were a hell of a bowler, man. And I remember I remember watching you, and I don't think we should discount that at all. Now, Mike, your tour days, how long were you out there for? You weren't out for as long.
No, I went out on tour right out of college and had really not much success. And looking back, I wasn't ready to go out on tour yet. I just wanted to, so I did. But competitive-wise, I wasn't there yet. But then right after I won, actually, I had started having wrist problems. So I ended up having wrist surgery, so I was off for a year and a half. So I think I only bowled about 150 total tournaments. So I only bowled about 6 years total. and some of you don't know, especially Matt, you might know because you weren't born yet. But Bakes and I actually bowled each other on television.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know you were going to have that clip actually.
Well, this is a different one here. This
Oh,
is
that's a different one. Yeah.
yeah. This is you versus Pete. I found the first clips I found were you and Pete, both of you guys bowling against Pete. So I thought that was interesting. We had Pete on the show not too long ago. But man, I'm loving the hairstyles from both of you back in the day. You've got the stash going. I'm loving
it. Was definitely a different time.
Had that good porn stash going right there.
I'll leave that one alone.
But yeah, Bakes, when you bowled, you kicked my ass. But it was my first show. It was Kansas City.
Kansas City, yeah.
Was that your first title?
That was my second. I had one in '84, and then I had made a bunch of shows. I had a bunch of seconds, and then the first 3 games I shoot like 770, and the scores were low. You guys, you're the only one that actually bowled. I mean, McDowell bowled bad, Husted bowled bad. You bowled a pretty good game. I think I shot 260 at you. Then I got Walter, and he's trying to hook a blue dot. He's got nothing, and I've got a good shot. I turned that into an ugly match, and I got lucky, and Walter didn't close the deal in the 10th, and I stole my second title.
Well, you're welcome.
But I parlayed that into a second place finish about 4 weeks later in the tournament champion. So it was about a $40,000 8-10 he left in the 10th.
Yeah. Hey, Bakes, what ball did you use on this show there? Do you remember?
Black UDOT.
Pretty
much
angle.
Every show, except for the up through 80. I started out through 84. All the shows were angles, and then black angles, and I went to black UDOTs, occasional wine UDOT. I think I made one show with the GTB. Wow. But I threw a lot of black. There you go. My knee bent that far now. I would never straighten out again. So that was a good day. I bowled pretty good till the last couple frames.
It's funny because I couldn't remember the score of that match that we bowled. So I actually looked it up in the press guide this morning. I shot 244 and you shot 266. So looking back, I was kind of happy with 244 my very first show, but I don't care if you bowl a good game or not. If you lose, it just sucks. Yeah, you would have won every other game besides mine. You'd have won every game. So they were a little funky, and I had something nobody else had, and then I had Walter beat, and I let him off the hook, and then Walter let me win again. But that was for winning a title. It's still I'm not very excited about it. The way I won was not. They're not going to have a Last Dance episode about how I won that title. Right.
All right, guys. So good trip down memory lane here. We've established that you guys both bowled on tour. You guys got to live that life. You know what that's all about. And you guys in the coaching side of things, and that's what I want to transition over to now, the meat and potatoes of our show today. We'll start with you, Mike Jasnau. How did you start getting into coaching, and how has that evolved for you over the years?
Well, when I was bowling on tour, I was given some lessons when I was home, but nothing really intensive, just kind of here and there. And then actually, and I don't know if you remember Bakes, but what year was it? 1993, at a tour stop in Tucson, Arizona, I was hit by a drunk driver. I was on my way to the airport to pick up my roommate and hit by a drunk driver and got hurt pretty badly. And at the time, I thought, okay, I'll take a few weeks off. I'm kind of sore and beat up a little bit, and I'll come back. And I remember like a month later, I tried to throw a ball, and I physically couldn't even throw a ball. My neck was so bad. And never bowled another tournament after that. So that was tough. But it's hard enough to compete against those guys on tour when you're healthy. And when you have an injury, realistically, you don't have a chance. So I kind of figured that out and got more into coaching, was lucky to have some connections with somebody that was handling maybe one at the stadium at the time. This was back in 1998. And then started there, working there, and just it kind of evolved into something bigger and bigger and bigger. And, ended up being there for over 20 years and just love it, But that's kind of how it all started. Kind of fell into it, went a different direction, always had a passion for bowling, so I wanted to stay in it at kind of a higher level. And luckily, I've been able to.
Yeah, and recently, I just learned with the renovations there at the stadium that your famous lane 81, and it's not your lane, right? I mean, it belongs to the stadium. It's there in the pro shop area, but you've been housed there every time that the tournament goes back to Reno, women's and men's championships. and your lane is now gone. How crushed are you that your lane is gone?
That's, to be honest, that was pretty devastating because I put my heart and soul into that and built something that I really loved and I thought was pretty successful and helped lots and lots of people. It was awesome having the tour there at the stadium and having the touring guys come over and getting all their stats and having little competitions and stuff. So that's kind of a big blow. And it's just, for me, it's extremely disappointing that the powers that be, whether it be the city of Reno or the National Bowling State people or USBC, who has a lot of interest there, nobody really stuck up for coaching and fought to keep coaching at our National Bowling Stadium, which is super disappointing.
Yeah, I'm sure that it was. I'm sure there was a good reason behind it. I certainly hope so. But the good news is coming out of this is that you still find a way. You find a way to go to the national tournaments, find a spot, and coach people. Obviously, with the pandemic, you're not able to do that right now.
Right.
But you're still planning on helping folks where they go to, right? When there's large droves of bowlers that need help, you go to those locations, right?
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to continue doing that. I do have plans, even though I'm not at the stadium. I made arrangements with Coconut Bowl and Sparks, which, by the way, was a 2019 FEC of the Year. So super excited to have a great venue. Going to have a specto system, so it's going to be awesome. And I'll be set up there throughout the national tournament, September 12th through November 21st. So if you're heading out there to Bowl Nationals, please come over and see me and take a lesson, and we'll see how much your average improves if your guess was correct in the poll.
Yeah, and Mike, you do this, if I remember correctly. My memory is foggy, but I believe you do lessons Monday through Saturday, and it's like from like 10 in the morning until 9 at night or something crazy like that at the peak of the tournament.
Yeah, especially like there on site at the stadium, it was kind of crazy. Usually nationals would run 18, 19 weeks, and most years I would take 3 to 4 days off in 18 or 19 weeks. And usually from mid-April through mid-June, I would just work every day. I'd work about 2 months without a day off. So kind of just ridiculous, crazy schedule. Looking back, I don't know how the hell I even did that.
Yeah, definitely a sprint walk type of business model there, where you're sprinting and then you go home and relax. And let's flip it over to Bakes now, because he's another successful coach, and I think Mark's got a little bit of a different way that he does it. So Mark, can you elaborate a little bit on how you found coaching and what you do for coaching?
I'm Mike. I did not know about that car accident. By 93, I had surgery, my back surgery, 91, and I was done. Like you said, I had an injury, and you can't compete with those guys when you're not 100%. So I was away from bowling quite a bit. Coaching was kind of I never had any aspirations to be a coach. When I bowled on tour, I knew very little about the physical game. I knew how to make myself work. I was pretty athletic. I was real athletic and I was very competitive. So I was a good bowler, not knowing what I did. I mean, David Ozio or Steve Wunderlich or Jeff Bellinger were the guys that helped me a little bit and they would try to tell me what I was good at, and I had no idea what they were talking about. So for me to become a coach was, as Steve Wunderlich put, of all the guys on tour in our era that became a coach, you would be the last pick. So I knew nothing about it. And then I did other things. I got in the mortgage business. I did that for quite a while. And people just kept asking for lessons. And I would go give a lesson and think how simple it was. They would get better. And I was like, why don't you guys know all this stuff? Then I realized that the people on tour knew a lot more than everybody else. So I had listened really well. I just didn't know much about it. And then it just kind of sprang from there. I tried it in the late 90s. I didn't do very good at it. I got myself in a different situation personally. And then I had some other jobs with track, and I worked with Cal Bowling Supply. But the coaching became more and more prevalent in what I like to do. And then one day, my wife and I decided that every day I coached, I came home in a good mood. It was time to pull the trigger, and I've been coaching full time for about 11 years.
Every day you coached, you came home in a good mood. Boy, that's a statement there. That's awesome.
Well, I would get in the car and I would call her like on a Sunday or a Friday, like, you're not going to believe it. I just gave 7 lessons. It was the best day ever. And she kept saying, every time you coach, you say that. And then I'd go to my real job, Monday through Thursday, and that result wasn't the same. And finally, she said, you need to do what you do. You're a much better person when you're done coaching. So that was kind of what, my son Gage had just been born. I walked away from a pretty good deal to try this. And, it was right in the middle of the recession. not this recession, but that recession. And it all worked out. I put together a pretty good business plan, and here we are 11 years later, and it's worked out really well.
Yeah.
Hey, you said something kind of interesting, and I totally agree with that. Is when I bowled on tour, I didn't know what I was doing either. I just kind of bowled, and I think at that time a lot of people were in that same situation. There wasn't a lot of prevalent coaching going on tour then. Nobody was doing video analysis back then. Of course, they were so huge you couldn't carry them probably. But when I bowled good, it was great. When I bowled bad, it sucked. But I didn't know why I bowled good and bad. And it sounds like you were kind of in that same boat. Right.
I mean, John Jowdy was the coach of the tour.
Absolutely.
I mean, John was a unique guy. I give John credit. He was the smartest coach ever. The way I look at it, John basically coached the top 30 guys. So John was the hitting coach for the American League and the National League All-Star team every year. So John won every week. I mean, John knew how to pick out talent. I'll give him that. So I mean, he was the only guy you could go to because he was out there every week, and he would give you all the time you wanted. And one thing about working with John Jowdy, you better be ready for the truth. John wasn't going to sugarcoat anything. But I think all the tour players, we were all pretty secure on how good we were and weren't. So when you were bowling bad, you knew it was you. It was never I didn't match up. It was never the balls were wrong. The guys today just have better excuses than we did. We had 3 levels. I bowled good. I bowled okay. I bowled terrible. And that was it. And if you bowled terrible, you just practiced. We didn't know. There was no going to the stadium and seeing Mike when the tour comes to Reno. You go work with Jasnau for 2 hours. You just went and practiced for 2-3 days. And then hopefully the shot, you saw something you liked and you bowl better. That's the only way I knew how to get out of a slump, was just to bowl more. We bowled a ton, I think, compared to now.
How many more titles do you think we would have won if we had somebody like us to go to back then? I know I would have won way more because I now know why I sucked on tour. I didn't know that.
Yep. I wish I'd have had, you work with him a little bit, and I've had a chance to spend a lot of time with Chris Barnes. Him understanding how lanes change per day. I never thought about, Walter A. Friday. When we were on tour, Walter bombed him on Friday. I'd always want to move in farther left, and Walter would move farther right. Well, I just didn't want to. I just hated it, so I would never even try it. But Chris understood that. I knew nothing about bowling balls. Wayne Webb, I thought, was always the smartest guy in our era about bowling balls. Wayne was the first guy to really put holes in different places and make those balls do tricks. I wish I knew more about equipment. I mean, I just basically drilled the same 2 balls over and over and over and over. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it'd have been nice to, instead of getting in a slump, somebody could have fixed it.
Absolutely.
I think video would have helped if you had good eyes, which obviously you and I have pretty good eyes. You could see yourself bowling well, and then somebody film it when you're bowling bad. We just like, oh, guy, why am I doing that instead of doing that? And then you kind of fix it your own way, and then I think it would have eliminated some of the slumps or some of the bad stretches, those 4 or 5 weeks where you can't get out of your own way.
And I think, if you look back at some of your shows, I know, like the first show I made with you, I look at that and I was like, holy crap, I hope none of my students watch me bowl. But then as the further shows went on the following years, I got a lot smoother, a lot better. I'm sure you see the same thing, like your first show compared to your later shows. Probably a big improvement with you also.
Well, I think that this part applies to when we bowled and also now. When you go on tour, only 2 things will happen. You will get better or you will go home. You either get better or you go home. There's no staying the same on tour. That's right. There isn't enough money on top to be a top 30 player and make a living. So you got to be a player. So you get better and you stay out there and you learn, or you don't learn and you don't get better and you get chewed up and go home.
Yeah. I can say without question, I'm a way better coach than I was a professional bowler.
I sure go to the bank more often. I like finishing 3rd on a PBA 50 event every week.
Yeah.
That's great. And Jazz, Bakes, you both talked about what the journey has been like from when you guys were bowlers to now bowlers, and what they have and how good they may have it when it comes to coaching. What has the experience been like? I guess we'll start with Bakes and then we'll go back to you, Jazz. And what has that experience been like to watch how the youth has gotten so much better over the years throughout your coaching careers?
That's flat out amazing. That the kids that are good now, that are young, are really, they're so much more knowledgeable. I mean, the greatest teacher in the world, we're finding out right now, is YouTube. I mean, you can live anywhere in the world and you can watch, if you're two-handed, you can just watch videos over and over and over of Belmonte. You can kind of figure it out. Our lane conditions now, if you want to know what a kegel pattern is or whatever the patterns are, if you go online, all the information is there. When we bowled, there was none of that. The only time you figured out how to bowl on tour was going on tour, because the conditions on tour were like no other place in the United States or the world. And even on tour, they wouldn't tell you what they were doing. So the kids today are much more knowledgeable. Talent-wise, good bowlers are good bowlers. I'm never going to downplay my generation or the guys. If Don Johnson was 15 and you taught him all the information available to Don Johnson, he'd be the top 5 player in the world. Don John, those guys were just good. So skill-wise, I don't know if they're better than us. They sure have a lot more knowledge and they know how to apply it. And they might be more focused than we were. Yeah, I played baseball and basketball through high school varsity stuff. I wasn't dedicated to bowling. I just soon shoot jump shots, throw a bowling ball. As I got older, bowling became more prevalent. The kids today are much more focused on bowling, I think.
All right. Thanks, Biggs. And Jazz, what about you?
Yeah, I totally agree. Some of the young, like the super young players today are way better and just like Bake said, more knowledgeable, so they get better quicker. But I've seen like 11, 12-year-olds that are averaging 200. That never used to happen. Now, of course, the conditions are different too and balls are different. But that being said, there are some really super good kids. And, I think for me anyway, a big life changer as far as bowling for me was I lived back east. I lived in New York, and I started bowling JBTs and didn't even know what it was. I lived up kind of in upstate New York, so I always had to travel down to the city of Jersey to bowl. And it was great. Scratch competition against these other good bowlers, and I'd never been, except for like in my local little league, where there really wasn't a whole lot of competition. But those JBTs were awesome. And then bowling JBTs, I found out about college bowling. I was like, wow, they bowl in college and you can get some scholarships. So I actually went to Wichita State, had a great time there, one of the best experiences of my life. And I think we see that a lot more today with the youth. They're going into, YBTs, JBTs, all that kind of stuff. You have to do your gold. You have awesome college programs. So these bowlers are so much more accomplished and ready when they come out that you see some young bowlers having good success earlier, I think, because of all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good question there, Matt, asking about the youth, and it transitions nicely into what I wanted to get into next, which is what type of players have you guys worked with, and in your coaching businesses, what is the heart of who you work with? And I think I want to go back to Bakes on this one, because about 10 years ago now, I think I said 15, and Bakes corrected me through text messaging before the show. I was at a seminar in St. Louis at the Grand Prix trade show, and at the time you were hooked up with Ebonite International, and you gave this seminar to pro shops about your coaching business. And I got to tell you, that day I was moved in the room. See how you dedicated yourself and how you built a business model from scratch, from nothing, to help people. And a couple of the highlights of that I remember on that day is that you had a website, and every time somebody bowled their highest game, you put it on the website, no matter the skill level. And I remember that skill level being all over the board. I remember it said something about like Betty R. bowled her highest game of 135. And then the next line of text said, Chris Barnes just won the Tournament of Champions, or something like that. And they were just right next to each other. And that was so intriguing for me that day. Could you give us the Cliff Notes version of your coaching business and that presentation that you did that day, and talk about the folks that you've worked with?
Yeah, I wanted to become a full-time coach, and you have to, economics is economics. So I had to find me a way to pay for taking care of my family. I had a new son. My wife at that time had stopped working because Gage was born. And I live in Orange County, California, which isn't cheap. So, and I had tried a couple different ways to do it by just giving lessons. And I had failed every time. My camp had started to become pretty good then. So I had camps and I had lessons, but those weren't, it didn't get me to a broad enough group of people. I kept going to my dad, who was a business, he ran banks and was, made business loans to people like me. And I kept giving my business plan. He kept telling me how I was going to fail, because I didn't have a feeder system. So then I hooked up with Barry Asher. We started doing this clinic every Saturday at Fountain Bowl, which we still do. We average 1,500 bowlers a year. It's $10 on Saturdays. It goes from 12:15 to 2 o'clock, and there's no qualifications to show up. You can average 220, or you can show up with no ball, no shoes. So I started doing that every week with him. Then I put together a house pro lesson thing at Fountain Bowl, where if you bowl league at Fountain, every other Wednesday I give lessons for $20 a half hour. My normal rate's $100 an hour. So my theory was people that average 100, 110, 120, they weren't going to commit to 100 an hour, but everybody has $20. So, but you had to bowl league at Fountain, so it helped them not lose. I made a presentation to the owners of Fountain, like, you're losing all these new bowlers because nobody likes to shoot under 100. You get them in the door, it's kind of fun, but too many times, I think in our sport, we think we go by who has the highest average. When you put your balls on the rack, the person with the highest average is the man. Well, I had somebody tell me, you know what you should do on every lesson? Walk out in the parking lot, see what kind of car they get in. So I started doing that. People that average 105 getting into Range Rovers don't like to average 105. They're super successful in everything else they do in life. They're not going to be bad at this. So I started marketing myself to that group. And then these people at 105 got to 150, and now they're bowling 3 leagues. So I was very into the economics of the whole thing. Who had the money? Not who was the best bowler. Because a lot of guys average 230, try center, live in their mom's basement. They can't afford me. So I started focusing on a different group of bowlers. And then my business got better, and it made me a better coach. But like Mike and I, we like I said, we didn't know what we were doing. Coaching a 220 bowler is kind of easy. You coach somebody 105 when their first shot goes in the left gutter, their second shot goes in the right gutter, and then the third shot hits the head pin. And we say, didn't that one feel better? And they give you that answer. They all feel the same. Then you can find out if you can coach or not.
Very true.
So I just wanted to find a way to have a broader group of people to coach. My business is still 175 to 210. That's where I live. That's the 60, 70%. All my camp people kind of fit in there. But you have to be able to coach the people above, the tour players. But the people that are I don't see many 150 bowlers. And my reason of that is they bowl an occasional 200. They never shoot under 100, but they have no pressure because 150 is a good average. I see a lot of people between 100 and 120, and a lot of people between 170 and 215, and then, the guys at the very top. So that's my 3 areas, I think. I never thought I'd spend so much time at the 100 average lesson, and they're actually the nicest. They're the easiest to improve.
Yeah, I remember that day when you gave that presentation. And you know what that says to me is a lot of hard work. I mean, you put in a ton of work into developing that and trying to figure that out. And how many pro shops did you tell that presentation to? And did you hear anybody ever come back and say, hey, I took your model, tweaked it a little bit, I'm doing it too? Did anybody ever do that?
I think the one who's talked to me about the most is Daniel Puerto in St. Louis. He's adapted it to his people, and he runs a pro shops. But I think his coaching, I gave him a different picture of what coaching could be. And people are always thinking 400 or 500 lessons. Mike does a ton of 700, 800 lessons in a short period of time. I just picked a completely different number than everybody else. I wanted to work with 2,000 people a year. My theory was the only way you get better is to do it a lot. I never got good at bowling by practicing 6 hours a week. I didn't want to give lessons 3 hours a week. And there's no book in the library about really successful people that said I did it part-time. So I thought, how am I going to get so I'm working 40, 50 hours a week at all the levels of bowlers so my eye gets better so I can become a better coach? I needed to broaden out what I did to make me better. I wanted to keep improving. I didn't want to get stale in what I did. And to this day, I'm working on it. And that website will be, on the pandemic time off, I have redone my website, getting ready to relaunch it. So I've gone back on my honor roll, and I've listed everybody from 2009 through 2020 on my honor roll. That took about 2 weeks. So that's actually a good sign. But yeah, that website will be gone in about 2 weeks. So I had to do something on the pandemic besides gain weight.
So markbakerbowling.com is still the website. You can still go over there and look at the board. And what's funny, man, to stick with that ever since that day that I saw you, and you're still doing it. And those lessons with Barry Asher on Saturday afternoons. I mean, you could take the weekends off, Mark, if you wanted to, but you're in there every Saturday doing this. And I just think that that's one of the hidden gems in bowling. The work that you've done, man. You get all
I appreciate that.
Yeah, all the accolades you get for being a PBA league manager and being buddies with all these guys. That's great. That's the strobe light to Bakes, right? But this here, when I heard about this, and you're still doing it 10 years later, I think it was longer than that, but 10 years later, we'll just say for today, man, that is just an incredible, incredible accomplishment. It's unbelievable.
Oh, wow. That's very nice. Thank you, Mike.
That's really cool. Now let's go over to Jazz a little bit. Jazz, your coaching business is quite different than Bakes, but also very, very, very successful. the sprint walk strategy, so to speak. Bakes is kind of jogging all the time over there. Tell us a little bit about, what you're doing there.
Well, initially it was really about being on Lane 81 at the stadium, because not only did we have nationals, we have lots of other tournaments there. So that was kind of a perfect place where bowlers come in. But Bakes is absolutely right. You get better by doing more and more and more and more. And I think, I forget what book it was in, but if you do something 10,000 times, you're pretty good at it. And I'm well past that, so hopefully I'm good at what I do. Bakes, I'm sure you're getting there too. But I remember one of the days in Reno that was one of the most interesting days coaching-wise. I had a guy come in, and usually in Reno, Mike, you've been there, where I'm doing one lesson, the next person comes in, I say, okay, fill this out, I'll be right with you. And then I tell this guy, hey, go ahead and warm up. And he looks at me and goes, I can't. I go, why not? He goes, I've never thrown a ball. And I was like, huh? You've never thrown a ball? He goes, no, my wife bowls, so I bought a ball and some shoes, and I thought before I screw things up, I'd get instruction. I was like, well, first of all, you're probably the smartest person I've ever met, because who thinks that? But it was so odd, because he didn't know how to stand, he knew nothing. And I remember one of the shots, he threw it behind him, and he was all embarrassed, and I was like, I don't know anybody who's bowled that hasn't thrown it behind him before. So no big deal. And then he was a lefty, and I remember, I got it on video, he threw the perfect shot, 4-step approach, perfect timing, perfect balance, hooked the ball, came right in the pocket, 10 to pin. He just looked at me like, did that just really happen? And that was within the hour. Now, I don't know what happened after that lesson, but that was pretty cool. Now, right after this lesson, and again, never bowled, knew nothing, I had John Handegard, who bowled on tour for, 40 years, every Hall of Fame there is. So that was back-to-back lessons, somebody who never bowled to one of the best Hall of Famers. And it was just kind of almost mind-blowing to have them back-to-back. But it was awesome. I love that. So just that variety, too, and just seeing different styles. Initially when I first started coaching, if I saw something really unusual and bizarre, I was like, oh, shit, I don't want to, what the hell am I going to do? And I would kind of be afraid of it. Now it's kind of like, oh, good, I get to work with this guy. So I think those lessons are kind of interesting, because, if you do the same thing every lesson, it can get kind of boring. So it's kind of good to switch it up with something very unusual. But yeah, I've done several clinics, which I don't mind. I really like that one-on-one. And I think you can get people a lot further quicker with more one-on-one time than in a clinic. That being said, clinic, opportunity for great information. You get to work with different people. So any kind of coaching is awesome if you want to keep getting better. Now, there are some bowlers, and I think it falls in that 150 average range, like Mark was saying, where they're recreational bowlers. If they don't bowl well, they don't care. They're just having fun, which is absolutely fine. But if you're one of those bowlers where every time you bowl badly, you're all pissed off, why aren't you trying to get better? If you don't change anything, your results aren't going to change. And it is so easy to get another 10 or 20 pins on someone's average. I don't think I've ever done an hour lesson where people have not improved in that 1 hour. And you think over the course of time, 1 hour, and you have a chance to get better. I don't understand why people are kind of afraid almost. I think a lot of people, especially with some coaches like Mark and I, who are a little bit more visible than some of the other coaches, I think people are afraid that we're just going to say, hey, you suck, you should take up tennis or something. And that's really not what it's about at all.
I think Bake said something like that to me.
What's that?
I think Bake said something like that to me at Team USA camp one time. I think Bakes was like, yeah, Maddie, tennis or golf, man. I'm not really sure if this bowling thing.
Yeah. I'm not sure that's ever happened.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever told anyone they should quit, because nobody should quit. Everybody can.
I fired Barnes in the middle of a tournament. We bowled that one year, the tournament champions. It was the year that they bowled for the big money, $250. And Chris was third after the first day, and they're bowling the last 8 games of qualifying. And he goes strike, ring in 10. No, he went ring in 10, strike, ring in 10, strike. And then he has a breakdown. And everybody around him, it was no joke. All 20 lanes around him, everybody had a 7-bagger. So, of course, in Chris's mind, he's gone from 3rd to 25th in 5 frames. So he comes back. He goes, I'm going to do this. I said, just stay in the same place and do it again. And like he goes, if I stay in the same place, he will ring in 10, which he did, and he came back and said something in the stands, and I just said, F you. Find somebody else to coach you. And I left. I just took off. So I went down there, and Linda's like, are you leaving? I'm like, yeah, I'll be fine. So like game 4, he comes down, he goes, are you really mad at me? I went, no, I'm good. What'd you bowl the last 2 games? 270, 260. You gonna make the finals, Chris? I think I'm okay. So that's, I just had enough. But that's, that's part of teaching the high level guys. I mean, a ringing 10 on the 4th frame, he's done. So, but other than that, I've never had any of those issues that you talk about. Coaching's fun. Yeah. I think people are very afraid that you're going to change them too much because, how do I say this politically correct? Because they get tips from people that don't know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
How's that for throwing it out there?
And that's
all because you own a 3-ball bag doesn't make you a coach. All because you have your name on your back on a shirt doesn't make you a coach.
You're right.
That being said, a lot of people offer they're giving you tips on what works for them. Very rarely will it work for you. That's why coaching husband and wives are so fun. The husband usually throws the wife to you as, he's throwing her out there for bait. You give her a lesson. What's the husband say? What did he tell you? What did he tell you? Well, you're 6'4", 240. She's 5'2", 110. Probably going to tell him different things. Yeah. She averages 130. He averages 200. But, that's kind of the fun of coaching. But your job is to take whatever they have and just make it better, not to just tear everything apart.
Correct. Exactly right. It's funny. I call that, there's lots of bad free advice.
Perfect.
And, people don't know it's bad advice. They just know it's free. They learned that it wasn't good advice. I actually made a video last year with some of the pros. It was kind of funny. And I called it pros versus bad free advice. So I took some of the tips that people are given that I hear, the crazy tips, and I had some of the pros try to do those tips, and it did not work out very well.
Well, I've done that with Chris. I've guinea pigged him. I've read some stuff online like, wow, that's kind of different. So Chris, this is, back when the tour stop was coming to Fountain, and he would show up and we would work on it. Like, do this, this, and this. Chris being, average, smarter than the average bear, we're like 3 shots into like, what in the world are we doing? I said, well, if I can't get you to do this, I'm pretty sure I can't get my amateurs to do it. So he would figure it out. He never let me go too far. He would figure it out in the 3rd shot, like, okay, this is impossible. Well, if the best guy in the world says it's impossible, what's my 180 guy going to say? So I use Chris as a guinea pig quite often.
Yeah. I do that too.
That's great.
The tricky part was working with Tommy Jones. He could actually do it. All right, Tommy, you're going to close your left eye and you're going to slide on your right foot today. Serious? Yeah, come on, Tommy, give it a shot. Give him 3 shots. Tommy Jones throw a double doing anything. They look at me and shake his head like, all right, you think this is going to work? We'll try it. But Tommy could pretty much do anything he wants.
Wow, I love this comparison here between Tommy and Barnes. Throwing a little bit of shade here at Barney for his lack of athleticism and probably lack of youthfulness here. I've got a couple of questions here for both of you. Jazz, I'll throw to you first. Walk us through what a lesson with Mike looks like and how you identify what you want each bowler that you work with to work on.
It kind of depends on the bowler, but obviously I take video first. I want to see what they normally do. Without trying to do something special, I want to see what they normally will do. And we kind of go from there. I'm sure Mark is the same. Within seeing 1 or 2 shots, I kind of know, okay, what direction we're gonna go. And I'll usually pick maybe 2 to 3 things that I want to point out. And that doesn't mean you're going to be proficient at 2 to 3 things in the hour. And we'll really work on one. And I think what most people find out, if you correct one little thing or tweak one little thing to make it better, several other things will chain react and get better. And that really shows the cause and effect kind of relationship there. And I think it's important for people to understand what they're changing and why. It's not just do this because I want you to do it. Because then if it feels weird, I'm not going to do this. This guy's a nut job. I'm not doing that. But if they understand why, and then they see the results on the lane, and that's really what it's about. It's not about looking different. It's about getting your ball to do what you want more consistently on the lane. But everything on the lane is a result of what you do in your approach. So I try to get 1 or 2 physical things kind of down, and then, I give them enough to work on for probably at least a month or so. I've had people come and say, hey, I want another lesson tomorrow. And I kind of almost discourage that because we're going to be doing the same damn thing. I want to see something a little bit different, and then we'll move on from there. And that's kind of how I approach it. And kind of my philosophy on coaching is I try to steer somebody in a certain direction, But in my opinion, it's always up to the bowler to put the work in and do the work to get there. So the bowler has the hard part. I think the coach has the easy part because we can point out a couple things, but it's really up to the bowler. And if they don't want to commit to it, that's fine. But then don't bitch if you're not doing that.
Yeah, good point. I'm sure Bakes agrees with that, putting in the work. Bakes, what's your methodology look like when it comes to giving lessons one-on-one?
A lot of it mirrors what Mike said. Obviously, Mike doesn't have kids, because if the person that paid me $100 an hour on Saturday wants to fire it again on Sunday, I'm pretty much showing up for the lesson. So, Mike, if you want to adopt a kid, you would change your business model. Believe me. But my goal is to, it's like what Mike says. I walk in, I think he might fill it out. I think the first 5 minutes, I really ask them a lot of questions, and I'm trying to figure out their bowling IQ. Because a lot of people can bowl really well physically, and been bowling for 6 months, and they don't know any of the terms I'm going to use. Or somebody's 180, been bowling for 40 years, actually knows more about bowling than I do. So I spend a lot of time trying to figure out where they are on their bowling IQ. And then, I try to film them like Mike says at the beginning. What I tend to do is let them warm up and okay, when you throw the one shot that you want to throw every time the rest of your life, tell me, I'll probably know it. So they turn around and throw that one shot. Once I see that, then videotaping and showing them why they're different is pretty easy. The videotape isn't for Mike and I. The videotape's for the bowlers. We can see the miss. So the video is for us to be on the same page, because some lessons start out adversarial. You're the coach and I'm the bowler and I'm trying to change you. There's billions and billions of dollars sold in how to become a better person or lose weight, because you're trying to change and nobody likes to change. So our job is to get you to change even though you don't want to. I want to lose weight, but I don't want to change my diet and I don't want to exercise. I want to improve my average, but I don't want to change anything. So you got to get good at communication, where we're actually changing them quite a bit and they don't know it. So it's really have to communicate and get them on the same page as you. So like what Mike said, we really have to show them why it works and here's why it doesn't work. And if you can videotape those two shots, put them together, they all say the same thing. Well, I want to throw it like that one every time. What do I have to do next? Exactly. But I think you really have to get to where they trust you before they'll do what you ask. I think we spend the first 30 minutes of every lesson, explaining, they got to figure out that we know what we're doing, because they're going to question you, especially the guys that are always a little bit older than me. Even though I'm pretty damn old already, there's always that one generation older. They like to question everything you do. So your job is to explain that you know what you're doing, and here are the small changes you can make to take care of those giant issues in your head. Or they always say the same thing. Wow, I'm not as bad as I thought. Because somebody else has told them how bad they are over and over and over. They're really not. If you're averaging 200, you can't be that bad. You really can't. I mean, it's a clean game with a double. I mean, a three-bagger with an open. You're not bowling bad if you average 200. You can't do everything wrong. So you got to simplify that for them a little bit. But Mike, a lot of things Mike said, I agree 100%.
Yeah, it's really.
We have a little bit of an advantage. We have video. People can't argue with video. They can't say I didn't do that. And if you have stats like from Specto or the old CAT system, they can't argue with stats. So we have a lot of good ammunition. So when they try to argue, we have something to back it up pretty quickly. So I don't know about you, Bates, but for me, I don't get a lot of people fighting with me because they really can't if you show it to them the right way.
True.
Yeah, I think.
No, I mean, yeah, it's not. I don't find that too much. I mean, I know this is going to sound crazy. When I raised my rates, when I got up to 100 an hour, the arguing went away. At 60 an hour, I argued a lot. I think people would pay a lot of money to argue. People would pay that much to question everything you did. Once I got my prices up and my business didn't get any, I got busier. Then the people taking a lesson are really there to get better. Correct. So I enjoy it. I mean, it's very rarely do I have maybe once every 6 months to a year, you have that person. You just don't get along. You just don't mesh.
Right.
Other than that, people are pretty easy to work with, actually.
When I have that one person, I always suggest a follow up with Mark Baker.
Appreciate that. I tend to get them too. Thank you.
This is great, guys. We're running a little low on time here. Bakes, one of the things I knew about you, or one of the ways I heard about you first, was through Camp Bakes. Tell us a little bit about the Cliff Notes version of what Camp Bakes is and where people can sign up for that and take part in that amazing event.
I do Camp Bakes twice. Well, normally I do Camp Bakes twice a year. Once in the spring, usually in May, and once in October. It's held at the Strike Zone in Henderson, Nevada. The limit is 36 people. I have it's a 3.5-day camp. The coaches are Doug Kent, Dave Husted, Robin Romeo, Barry Asher, Joe Hutchinson, and Steve Jacobs. You get 3 900 global balls. You get 8 meals, 2 shirts, and it's a 3.5-day bowling camp. And it's, I think we're coming up. So I rescheduled the ones in May, obviously had to get canceled. So I have 2 coming in October. One sold out. One has 33, but we don't know. That number might change when people have to actually fly or try to get there. We don't know what's going to happen in October. But it's a twice-a-year thing, 36 people. Like I said, my new website will come up. I've got all kinds of frequently asked questions on there. It'll explain it pretty well. But it's our 34th camp. It's our 15th or 16th year doing it. I got a great group of coaches. It goes really well. The amount of repeat people is astounding, how people come back. We have a great time. I will say this. The most common comment I get from people on their survey is, I didn't know there were 35 other bowlers that like bowling as much as me. So the group is very into the game of bowling. We have a great time, and people do get a lot better. As you can see on the updated honor roll list, you will see all the Camp Bake alumnus 300s, 800s winning tournaments.
Wow, great. Well, yeah, make sure you check that out. Make sure you go and find, if you go bowl the Open Championships, if you go bowl a big event and Mike Jasnau is there, and you don't go reach out to Mike Jasnau to improve your bowling, then I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. I just don't. Mike, remind everybody again, what date will you be available starting for lessons out?
Nationals will be in Reno at the stadium, and of course I'll be at Coconut Bowl and Sparks. But the Nationals runs from September 12th through November 21st. So I'll probably start around September 10th or so, and be there through November 21st. In the meantime, I am home in Utah doing lessons. I do online lessons also. I do an annual trip up to Alaska for a few weeks, usually from mid-August into early September. I haven't booked that yet because I don't know what's going on. So it's kind of hard for me to book these bigger events because we don't know what's going to be going on, But hopefully I'll still be able to maintain that trip. I can sneak that in right before Nationals. Usually in the fall, I do a big trip up in the Northwest, Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. It depends on the travel restrictions. And hopefully one day too, I'll be allowed to be in Camp Bakes. I know we had talked about that a couple times, Bakes, where one time you called me and said, "Hey, somebody can't do it. Can you do it?" I was like, "Oh shit, I can't do it. I'm busy."
Right.
One time I was like, "Hey, I'm available." I was like, "Well, I don't need you."
Yeah, we tried to make it work a couple times, and the spring is tough for you because Nationals, you're so busy.
Yeah.
And then, that was, I'm sure one day we'll make it all work.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Great, guys. Well, we'll take a 10% VIG for when that happens, and you guys link up and you sell out the Camp Bakes that year. I want to thank you guys so much for coming on the show today. It's always a blast talking to you guys and learning more about the game of bowling.
Thank
you, Matthew.
All right, Matt, that's going to do it for our show here today. A good one. These two guys, I wanted to have them on together because every coach has a different philosophy, the way that they do things, but they all together do the same thing, which is help people bowl better. And those are two guys I had personal relationships with that have touched or moved me. I also didn't have the opportunity to talk about my lesson with Mike Jasnau as things were just flowing here today. But one thing that I learned in my lesson with Mike is I always thought I need to scoot up a little bit closer on the approach. And because of where the dots are on the approach, you're either at the back dots or the front dots. Well, Mike, and look, I know bowling, right? And this was so obvious. I was using the front dots because I didn't want to use the back dots because I would run. And he's like, "Oh, just split the difference. Go somewhere in between." So why was I so set on using these dots? And then so that was one thing that we fixed with mine. I still have the DVD. I reviewed it last night, and he likes to compare you against other styles too. He had me compared against David Ozio, which
maybe that's a little bit strategic there to try to make these people feel real good. Because I'm sure when he said, "Yeah, Mike, you remind me of David Ozio," you were like, "Oh yeah, baby, greatest lesson ever."
All I gotta do is get myself here to here, loosen up the arm swing, get a better slide.
Yeah, put Ozio on the back of my shirt, and I'm out here, man.
Fuller hair, yeah, but it's cool.
And two great coaches. I've gotten to spend some time with both of them. Actually, I made the cut at the World Series at one of the events a couple years ago. Jazz let me practice on the lane and in the pro shop there at the National Bowling Stadium. And I was really grateful for that. I worked with Bakes with Team USA a couple of years ago. And that was a great experience. And I think, like you said, Mike, the thing that's really interesting to me is that regardless of the models that they use for their businesses, which are both successful models, it all comes down to the same principles of coaching, and the things that they look at and the things that they find in their lessons are the same regardless of how they go about them.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, we're out of time today. Want to thank everybody for watching the show today. If you got anything from it, send us an email, media@insidebowling.com. You can head over to insidebowling.com and save 15% off merch with coupon code IBShow. Tomorrow, we're going to have the CEO of Kegel, Chris Chartrand, on. He sent me a care package, and we're going to open that tomorrow on the air. And we're looking forward to having Chris on the show. We will be 1 hour earlier again tomorrow, as we have been on Fridays with Chris. So until then, everybody stay safe out there. Have a wonderful Thursday, and we'll see you tomorrow on the program.
See ya.